Today, we will talk about the 9 faces of reality in our multidimensional universe. It sometimes feels like we live in a hall of mirrors, each face being an infinite world. But maybe if we examine each face one at a time briefly, we can embrace them all to make sense and somehow integrate them into our bodies. The 9 faces of reality appear to be separate facets, but they are all one universe that is ours. And to claim possession of our world, we need to ask ourselves, what is my heart level? Brainwave frequency, density, parallel world. What is your bloodline, soul lineage, time, physical space? And then can we assimilate this awareness in the sweet spot in the center of the brain and in the belly? Integration is the key to ascension. Our world is shifting and we are beyond the tipping point. As our earth ascends, the veil between the worlds gets thinner. And some of us are still clinging to old concepts because we haven't yet figured out how to use the new frequencies. But every day, our reality is so new, we must invent ways to put it into words. In this greatest shift of the ages, we are discovering we can assimilate and integrate many other states of consciousness in the body innate wisdom. As the old blueprint of false light matrix now auto-destructs and dissolves, we are free to choose our direction in a global bifurcation of humanity into a new paradigm of our highest density. The word universe implies it's unified by vibration. So maybe our every thought and action impacts all others. And every one of us is a living fractal in the universal reckoning. Now I'm going to screen share because I have some cool pictures to show you. And let me see if I can do this. It's a file where I have pictures that will illustrate what I mean. The first thing, okay, we have 4 more people in the waiting room. We can do this. It's okay, I can do this. But how can I do it in a screen share at the same time? Excuse me while I stop the share and enter and let them in. We have Jane, SMB, and Lee. Welcome. Okay, we're sort of right in the middle and I'm screen sharing. And here is the file. The first fractal of consciousness we're going to talk about is the Hawkins scale of consciousness. It measures your heart frequency. So where are you today on this scale of 1 to 1,000? This is a hypothetical scale based on kinesiology and muscle testing by Dr. David Hawkins, philosopher and psychiatrist, who says that every thought, every emotion, every intention and action has a specific energetic frequency, your magnetic energy field. So what level of consciousness do you express today? Dr. Hawkins noticed that his awareness evolved from an ego-based or left brain focus into a completely heartful state of pure bliss. He created a way to measure these energy fields using applied kinesiology and muscle testing. So is this real or is this not real? I can't answer that question, but it is useful. Emotions are chemicals in the bloodstream. They are part of the Hawkins scale, originating mostly in the endocrine system, in the glands in the brain. They relay chemical signals via the bloodstream. How do our emotions give rise to awareness, thoughts, and actions? Some say emotions are a distortion of reality, but some say emotions are our greatest resource. And if we can harness our passion into positive action, we can be very powerful beings. On this frequency scale, there's no judgment, and the scale is not fixed. Now, there are many ways to measure frequency, and we live in a physical world. So we have emotions and frequency flowing through the liquids of our body, which are essentially salt water. The lymph and the blood are conduits of energy. Your pH acid alkaline balance is critical, because if you get too acidic, then your microbial world will change. And if you get more alkaline, then the microbes don't even want to see you anymore. Or maybe you can look at chi meridians and judge frequency from that. Or maybe you can look at the chakras. Or maybe you're one of those people that likes to look at auras. These are all valid ways to measure healthy frequency. Okay, now I have a video for you, which means I have to stop the share and go to another file and look at a video. And here we go.
An individual vibrating at 700 on Hawkins' map of consciousness counterbalances the negativity of 70 million individuals below a level of 200. An individual at 600 counterbalances 10 million people below 200. One at 500 counterbalances 750,000 people below 200. And an individual at 300 counterbalances the negativity of 90,000 individuals below 200. So you see, your vibration may be more important than you thought. And so we cannot allow ourselves to be swept up in the hysteria of what's being perceived around us. And instead, we have to go within and cultivate a holographic version of the world we want to see.
Thank you very much. Yes. Now, that's the end of the first facet of reality. Does anyone have any comments or questions or discussion? Shall I barrel on? Okay, here we go. I'm going to share the screen to my... So, what is your brain frequency? Well, brain frequency is a way that you can measure your physical brain waves. And it measures states of consciousness. We can measure brain waves with EEG using electrode connections on the scalp. They're one indication of your level of awareness, health, happiness, and very relevant to your state of being. Common brain waves are here let's see, at the highest one is epsilon, a state of divine ecstatic bliss. It always comes along paired with the lambda waves at the very, very bottom. Gamma waves are measured from 31 to 130 hertz, and they're a kind of genius focus, hyper concentration. Beta waves are linear cognition, like you're listening to a lecture on brain frequency, you might be in the beta state. In the alpha state, we are more relaxed. We can visualize, we might be listening to music. In the theta wave, we are in the middle of deep meditation, inspiration, right brain intuition, or maybe that transparent area between waking and sleeping. And then delta is the deepest relaxed sleep, healing, access to collective mind, or shall I say healing and regeneration. So this is what it looks like. And I would challenge any scientist to analyze my brain waves or your brain waves and actually categorize them according to these limited numbers. But so according to Tesla, the electrical resonance of Earth is 7.83 hertz. That's the Schumann resonance, and all biology vibrates at this speed. This incidentally corresponds to the alpha theta brainwave frequencies, which is a relaxed state of cellular regeneration and healing. But what happens when we are surrounded with Wi-Fi at 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, which is millions and billions of times the speed? It's no wonder we feel out of balance. Defense Department funding for an advanced research project called ElectRx conducts experiments to send impulses to brain neurons to turn them on and off, as well as implanting V2K, voice to skull thoughts and emotions that can penetrate the brain and be used for various purposes. Oh, really? Oh, really? So is this where we're going as a society where we can augment ourselves as humans? Many people are already taking advantage of this because the more food that you eat with graphene hydrogel, the more vaccines you take with graphene hydrogel, and the more chips you get in your body, the more tied to the cloud you are, the more you're linked to all of society with via the cloud. You could even have a motherboard in your navel, and you can become a cell phone tower yourself. I'm not sure I'm not sure how good this is for your health and whether anybody will live through this. But this is what is being proposed by certain people in positions of power. That is the end of my section on brainwaves. Any comments or issues or hi Ron, let's hear from you.
Hi, Srijana. Thanks for hosting this. It's just that when we talk about consciousness, we talk about the battle of consciousness, and I think if you look at the brain waves, it's funny enough. It's funnily enough they're all correlated to the names of the virus of the variants. So that's why it's been a battle of consciousness. Every brainwave, alpha, delta, gamma, even the last one is llama, is all correlated to our consciousness, and it's just total mindfuckery, let's say.
Well, I don't exactly believe this. They're doing their best to categorize our waves and to control thoughts. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I do know that thoughts can be observed from other dimensions, from other densities, remotely. So there's a lot we have to learn there. Yeah. So shall I continue barreling on? Now,
well, I'll make a quick comment or two. Well, one thing is, if you look at this scientific literature, they cannot pinpoint the source of the brain waves inside the brain.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so they don't know where it's coming from, and of course, conscious decision. There was the old Libet experiments which have been carried on. There's critics of it, but it shows that in some of the experiments, the brain reacts up to 7 seconds before the person can consciously actually make a choice. I cover this in some of my workshops. And as far as the brain waves and consciousness, one of the theories is, and the dreams, is because when we're sleeping, we go down into delta, right? The deep, 1 to 4 brainwave range. But then when we go into REM, the rapid eye movement, we go back up into alpha. And then some have theorized that we actually harmonize with Earth's frequencies at that point, and that those frequencies are actually what cause the melatonin to metabolize into dimethyltryptamine and cause us to dream.
Wow, this is amazing. These are very connections.
Yeah, well, because as they found out, we know serotonin and dopamine, they're sort of, I can't think of the word right off. They're just normal in our system all the time, but so is DMT, they found out. They never checked it. And that's part of what is our whole connection, sort of the flavor of reality, we could call it, comes from that. It just gets amplified during the dream state. But anyway, yeah, just comments. Please carry on. This is all fascinating.
Thank you for this. This requires some further research, but it's actually fascinating. I will add that when I was a student, rather than like my friends work at Burger King, I went to the psych department and I worked as a subject in their experiments, and they were pretty bizarre. And they did test brainwaves for me, with me, on me, and I was like a brainwave acrobat. I could go to this one and that one over there, and it was really fun. And it made me aware that these might be real, they might be physical, but it also made me aware that they're absolutely hypothetical, and I could crash and burn their system if I wanted to. I thought it was, anyways, kind of a wake-up call for me. So moving on, densities as I see them today. What is 3D and what is a density? A density is a layer of reality in this multidimensional universe. Some experts say there are 7 densities, others say 12, others say 15. One common 7 density model comes from the law of 1 books. Some say there are physical realms and then non-physical realms, and way up to the great spirit or source or God, whatever you call that force that creates densities and continues to create densities at the very top. These days, we hear talk about ascension from 3D to 4D and 5D, but what does that really mean? Are areas in space-time really numbered? Does the universe have veils and demarcations with levels clearly compartmentalized? Maybe 4th and 5th densities aren't exactly destinations, but collective awarenesses and stages of self-discovery along a soul's evolutionary journey back to source. So just a really, really quick overview of what some say that are the dimensions or the densities, I'm calling them today. 1D is physical elements of kind of a slow awareness of existence like rocks. Then we have 2D, which might be animals, bugs, plants, and microbes. Then 3D, well, 3D is a human realm. Like us, we possess a physical body, DNA, chi, energy meridians, chakras, microbiome relationships with single-celled creatures. We have requirements for physical life like food, water, and oxygen. But we can't see the higher densities. We can only see the lower densities. And we are learning that this density is a reflection of all the other densities, even though we can't see them. In 3D, we reproduce sexually by combining the lineages via sperm and egg of a male and female. We communicate in language and audible words. We have thought forms. Some of them are real and some of them are not. One of our thought forms is money, which we love and we think is real and we think it's very important. In 3D, we also possess free will and seeds of self-awareness. Hence, we can make choice. We can choose between the 2 principal paths that determine our ascension, which is to serve the self or to serve the all. We interact with animals and plants. Like mini gods, we can create our own smaller reality in 3D using our mind, imagination, thoughts, and actions. This is our little layer of creation in the universe. Moving up through 4th density, let's talk a little bit about this because some people say we're already in 4th density, which is a density of love. This 4th density includes beings that straddle the boundary between space-time and higher ethereal realms. Physicality is more responsive to thought, but still hidden behind a dimensional curtain from 3D. There are said to be 2 3D or 4D densities. One is positive and one is negative. So you can ascend to 4D positive, the density of love and kindness, or you can ascend with the right amount of focus and and self-centeredness, you can ascend to fourth density negative into a world where everyone is searching for the infinite connection via service to self. This is a very interesting concept for me because I read recently in The Law of One that Genghis Khan recently, 800 years ago, ascended to the negative 4D density. He was supposed to be a really evil guy. And did he really? Well, according to The Law of One, Ra said he is in the evil 4D density now. So going above that, 5D is a density of etheric but physical existence. 5D beings are said to be, an example of that would be Andromedans. They can observe humans in 3D and can observe our thought processes. They can assist when asked, but they are not allowed to interfere with our collective evolution. And then I don't know much about 6, 7, 8, and up. So I would just say that these are moving toward non-physical densities, and I hope to learn someday, but I have no idea. Carl Sagan explains the videos in this one really, really funny video, which I'll just show you a little bit of by sharing my screen back to another video. Here we go. Where is Carl Sagan? Here he is.
Most astronomers sometimes say that space is curved, or that the universe is finite but unbounded. Whatever are they talking about? Let's imagine that we are perfectly flat. I mean, absolutely flat, and that we live, appropriately enough, in a flatland, a land designed and named by Edwin Abbott, a Shakespearean scholar who lived in Victorian England. Everybody in flatland is, of course, exceptionally flat. We have squares, circles, triangles, and all scurry about, and we can go into our houses and do our flat business. Now, we have width and length, but no height at all. Now, these little cutouts have some little height, but let's ignore that. Let's imagine that these are absolutely flat. That being the case, we know, us flatlanders, about left, right. We know about forward, back, but we have never heard of up, down. Let us imagine that into flatland, hovering above it, comes a strange three-dimensional creature which, oddly enough, looks like an apple. And the three-dimensional creature sees an attractive, congenial-looking square, watches it enter its house, and decides in a gesture of interdimensional amity to say hello. Hello, says the three-dimensional creature. How are you? I am a visitor from the third dimension. Well, the poor square looks around his closed house, sees no one there, and what's more, has witnessed a greeting coming from his insides, a voice from within. He surely is getting a little worried about his sanity. The three-dimensional creature is unhappy about being considered a psychological aberration, and so he descends to actually enter flatland. Now, a three-dimensional creature exists in flatland only partially. Only a plane, a cross-section through him can be seen. So when the three-dimensional creature first reaches flatland, it's only the points of contact which can be seen. And we'll represent that by stamping the apple in this ink pad and placing that image in flatland. And as the apple were to descend through, slither by flatland, we would progressively see higher and higher slices, which we can represent by the apple. So the square, as time goes on, sees a set of objects mysteriously appear from nowhere and inside a closed room and change their shape dramatically. His only conclusion could be that he's gone bonkers. Well, the apple might be a little annoyed at this conclusion, and so, not such a friendly gesture from dimension to dimension, makes a contact with the square from below and sends our flat creature fluttering and spinning above flatland. At first, the square has no idea of what's happening. He's terribly confused. This is utterly outside his experience. But after a while, he comes to realize that he is seeing inside closed rooms in flatland. He is looking inside his fellow flat creatures. He is seeing flatland from a perspective no one has ever seen it before, to his knowledge. Getting into another dimension provides, as an incidental benefit, a kind of X-ray vision. Now our flat creature slowly descends to the surface, and his friends rush up to see him. From their point of view, he has mysteriously appeared from nowhere. He hasn't walked from somewhere else. He's come from some other place. They say, for heaven's sake, what's happened to you? And the poor square has to say, well, I was in some other mystic dimension called up. And they will...
Okay, thank you. I don't need to go any further with this. And now we will go back to where we were. Okay, now, any comments on densities or discussion? Okay, I'm barreling on. Now we're into parallel worlds. I'm no expert in parallel realities. However, I believe infinite simultaneous worlds can exist. And quantum physics suggests there is no such thing as objective reality if it is not consciously observed. The only takeaway possible for me is that we live in a vast multidimensional universe that we don't quite understand. And now, with your patience, I'm going to share another video that is from Bashar that shows us another view of another view. Okay, another view of the
things that Bashar has talked about is the idea that we are at what he calls a splitting prism. And what this means to him is going back to the idea of parallel realities. There are an infinite number of parallel versions of Earth that coexist with our version, and that we are actually constantly shifting from one reality to another, one version of Earth to another. And as we change our belief systems, we navigate through these different versions of Earth to experience something more and more and more like the vibration and the version of Earth that we prefer. And this goes in a positive and a negative direction. Those that choose to make negative choices will experience Earths that are more negatively reflective. Those that opt for positive choices will experience versions of Earth that are more positively oriented. Eventually, he said, the splitting prism will be such that we will not necessarily interact with anyone whose vibration is completely incompatible with ours, that people will disappear from that reality one way or another, and ultimately we will only be left with interacting with people that are at least to some degree on a similar wavelength that we are on.
Thank you. Any comments on parallel realities? Moving on, barreling on. What is your bloodline? Your bloodline is your physical lineage, your DNA, your blood type, and your inheritance from your mother and father, and all your ancestors. biological blood lineage is not the same as soul lineage or other incarnations. DNA and blood are a huge rabbit hole of creation and evolution, as we now discover our true blood song may reside in the junk DNA. Your blood type is based on your DNA blueprint at conception, DNA being perhaps your physical link to the infinite. New blood cells are constantly created in the bone marrow, which is located mostly in the flat bones of the upper body. And bone marrow produces many types of new red blood cells, white defensive cells, and generic stem cells for healing and regeneration. The bone marrow is also an area where toxins can accumulate, which can shorten your lifespan. So it's important to keep your bone marrow system vital and free of toxins. We use the ABO blood type system to read the presence or absence of antigen molecules that categorize blood into 4 types. Okay, I can do this. And here's the 4 types. Yeah. So basically we have A, B, O, and AB, and then we have a positive and negative for each one. A great deal of information has been hidden about blood types. No wonder so much secret research focuses on the blood. And nowadays we have novel AI nanotech graphene particles in our blood from vaccines and also from food and water. Essentially, these are electrical bioweapons that we all carry as we move into a fascinating future never seen before. For more information, I refer you to the experts, which I consider to be Stuart Swerdlow, David Icke, Elena Denon, Alex Collier, Eddie Page, and Dr. Robert Young. How come humans have so many blood types? You can see blood types, all the different colors, are distributed all over the world. Every continent here has each blood type in different concentrations. And every country has a database of all the blood types of every person, so they know exactly what is going on in your blood. Your blood type may be an indication of your celestial origin. Wait a minute, I've got a really cool, this is a really cool diagram from Alex Collier that shows all the 8 blood types and its percentage of the human population and where their origins would be from an extraterrestrial point of view. So if you're an Rh and O positive blood, which is very, very many of us, your ancestors may have come from Bhutas, Sagittarius, and Nunki. I don't know where any of these places are, but suffice it to say that humans are a vast collection of many, many races. There's much discussion about Rh negative blood that may come from a lineage of Draco origin in the Carpathian Mountains of Eastern Europe. The O negatives often have a tail or an extra vertebrae at the tail, and they are said to be hybrids, but then, of course, it appears that we are all hybrids. And since all royal families have Rh negative blood, it does point to possibly a special bloodline that combined reptilian bloodline with Neanderthal DNA. I don't know for sure, but maybe the royal blue bloods can be tracked back to the tribe of Dan and Cain in the Old Testament. This serpent bloodline is said to have migrated from Babylon into Europe and the Caucasus and Asia via the Scythians and the Turkic Mongolian tribes, who were also light-skinned with red hair and green eyes. And the O negative bloodline is most plentiful in northern Western Europe and Somalia. Our bloodline is something like a caste system for humanity. Although we don't call it a caste system and we don't officially have a caste system. As Carl Jung suggested, history is not contained in thick books, but lives in our very blood. So your DNA is unique and your bloodline is ancient, and combined so many ancestors, you are still completely unique. If you went back 50 generations, you would have over 500 trillion ancestors if they were all unique beings with no cross lineages. And that's a lot of ancestors and a lot of sex. Any comments or discussion about bloodline?
I just was wondering how do we know this about Ursa Major and Minor and Cygnus and all, I mean, how did that come to us?
Well, that's a good question. Alex Collier, that you can find at alexcollier.org, is actually an Andromeda contactee. It was contacted when he was something like 7 years old. And they took him up into their fifth dimensional space ship, and they have to put a special belt on him so that he can cross dimensions. But he talks about it on his website. And he wrote a book called Embracing Sacred Ground. It's very amazing. He offered this information, and it's from an Andromedan source.
Okay, so he received the information from another dimension, basically.
He was told by his brother, who comes to visit him periodically and is blue.
His brother in Andromeda, or?
Apparently, the story goes that Alex Collier was a visitor from Andromeda many thousands of years ago and was killed in an altercation, and his body became tied into our reincarnation system. So he has had many lives as a human being, and now they visit him and they say, you will be joining the family very soon. And that's how he was sort of able to cross over dimensions. You can meet him, you can go to his webinars, you can call him, you can talk to him on the phone. He's quite an open guy, and he's kind of a regular guy. And he lives in, I think, Denver, Colorado, or something like that. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild.
Pretty wild. Okay, Ron, what do you got?
Well, when you mention things, I like to think logically.
Me too.
The Bosnian War, the Somalian War. So if these are rich in plasma, would they be used for adrenochrome?
Well, I don't have any idea about that. That's an adrenochrome production question that I'm not an expert on.
Yeah. Well, that's because it's when you look at the countries, I don't know about Bosnia and I don't know about Somalia, but it'd be interesting to see what the percentage of vaccinations are in these countries, because they want to keep pure blood.
They do?
Yeah.
Who wants to keep pure blood?
Well, the dark side, the cabal, they wanted to keep it.
They wanted to keep their pure blood.
Well, the people in that country, so they could bloodlet them.
I don't know the answer to that. I have no idea, but I do know that there's a lot of the blue blood in Somalia. That doesn't mean necessarily they're royal or doing adrenochrome. I have no idea. It's a whole nother issue. Barreling on. What is my soul purpose? So what is your soul lineage anyway? Soul lineage is your timeless blueprint your essence, the origin of your soul. We all come from source energy, that's God energy, and the soul exists beyond space, time, or density. The soul activates our human body with life as the Atman, that is the vital essence that is eternal, unchanging, and the source of the universe itself. Sorry, going back. We're into, come on. Yeah. Although we may have many physical lifetimes in which we are born, live, and die, the soul is indestructible. It sees all our existences as it can never die. Maybe the transition we feel now in 3D is an instantaneous upshift in the still point of the now. Maybe it's a reflection of the Buddhist concept of impermanence, meaning all that is physical will soon perish. We are all travelers, visitors in a multidimensional universe. Our job is to learn our soul lessons, dissolve dissonance, and move to the next level of our existence. Moving on. What physical space do you live in? Well, physical space is closely tied to our body, senses, and perceptions. Our world radiates out from our physical body based on our perceptions from which we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell the world. It's as if we see ourselves in the mirror, reflecting our own perceptions and our own expectations. So what are the six senses anyway? Well, we have vision, and we have a particular wavelength that we can see. And an eagle's wavelength would be very different. We have a sense of smell, which is from particles that are suspended in the air we breathe. We can hear from 15 to 20,000 hertz, but an elephant can hear a completely different range, as can a porpoise or a dolphin. We have 10,000 taste buds on our tongue that we use to taste, and we can touch by sensory vibrations on the skin. And then, according to Chinese medicine, we have a sixth sense, which is integrating them all, intuition. And some say it is found in the hair follicles, but I don't know about that. That's it. Maybe our material reality isn't physical at all. And maybe our very idea of science being based on the five senses has lost the boat. According to Dr. Edward Close, who is a mathematician, physicist, and cosmologist, mainstream science has become totally stagnant in a false belief system, that a false belief system that is based on dualistic, and it is a kind of scientism which is atheistic, and it relegates consciousness and spiritual evolution to the realm of mythology and fantasy. He says our battle now represents the struggle between left brain, AI, transhumanist materialism, and ego, versus right brain, expanded intuition. These are two extremes. And what will we choose? Will we choose balance and experience whole brain awareness? Okay, any comments about space and the six senses?
What about when you think of someone and then in a few seconds they call you and you haven't talked to them in ages, or things like that, or you sort of read somebody's mind, you know what they're thinking, or what they're about to say. What are those sensory, or is that
some people call that ESP, but I would call it an ESP, extrasensory. They have a name for it, We have to have a name for everything. But I would call it a synchronicity in the universe that tells you that you are listening beyond the five physical senses, and a beautiful confirmation of your own awareness. That's what I would call it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think of it. I know it is. I was forgetting about extrasensory perception, but I think it is sensory, but we don't have a name for the sense, so we say extrasensory.
Yeah, well, that's a scientist's name. Maybe you better give it a name because we don't have words for these things. This is a problem.
Yeah.
We're inventing a new language. Okay, can I barrel on to time?
Yep.
Time. Is time real? Is it an illusion? Or maybe it's both. Or maybe it depends on your perspective. We measure time in planetary orbits. Some of our time concepts are real, but some of them are fictional. Real ones are days. Yeah, the sun comes up and goes down. The earth rotates. We believe that. Some of us believe it. We have years when the seasons repeat, and we have moon cycles. We see the moon. That is physical, and it is a real planetary orbit. Fictional concepts of time include minutes, seconds, weeks, our 12 Roman months, centuries, and counting years from the birth of Christ. These are all just made up. They're fiction. Time itself is both real and an illusion because I'm told in higher densities above 3D, all of time is one. Timelines towards a positive shared future can be observed and controlled consciously by multidimensional beings and by our collective consciousness. Much information about time travel has been gleaned from the secret military, including proof that our Space Force can travel through time, and from Project Looking Glass that indicates all timelines converge and move toward planetary ascension. Earth's next larger orbit is the Great Year of 26,000 years, which is our sun's binary orbit with a sister star. So here in this picture, you see the huge Milky Way galaxy. Can you see my cursor moving?
Yeah.
No. Yes. Anyway, this is the big Milky Way galaxy, which says it takes some 200 million years to completely turn around. But there's a smaller orbit within that is a binary or trinary orbit with sister stars that is called the precession of the equinoxes. It's like a mini orbit through the Milky Way that brings us closer to the galactic central sun on the expanding half, 13,000 years, and further away from it on the contracting side, 13,000 years down. And this is said to have a huge impact on consciousness on the Earth, which rises and falls based on how close we are to the galactic center of consciousness. I'm not going to argue which yuga we're in because I really couldn't care and I have no idea. But I am pretty sure right now we are on the expanding side of the orbit, and energetic forces in our galaxy are heating up and in our planet. So there's a growing awareness, excitement, and polarization on Earth. And maybe this is fueling the shift of the ages. Any comments or discussion on time?
Well, no, definitely the precession affects consciousness. You know, we can see that in the archaeological records.
Yeah.
So certainly we're in some sort of dance with Sirius. That seems pretty clear.
Yeah.
So when we're closer, but whether or not it's a binary orbit or we're in a twins in a Birkeland current under the electric universe theory, it's hard to say, but it does seem to have a direct effect on our state of being. And I'm of the school that says we're at the end of the Kali Yuga at this point, basically, that we're at that turning point onto the dwarf.
There's hope for the future yugas to be better than this.
Well, hopefully, yeah. Yeah, we're at the tail end. I mean, I know some people think, according to Swami Yukteswar, right, that the Kali Yuga ended a few hundred years ago. But I think we're in the absolute age of wickedness, and I think I think that they've misunderstood concepts like nuclear power, which isn't really nuclear power. It's really rather backwards. They're just like sticking nuclear material together and letting it heat up. It's not any sort of advancement. Any of the great advancements have been stopped by the powers that be, indicating we're still in that age. So hopefully we are at the turning point and we are moving into a higher density of space that is certainly the hope and appearance.
Thank you, Tom. I think maybe that nuclear explosion is an indication that we are in fact, in the lowest yuga right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to barrel on.
Yeah.
How can we integrate the faces of reality in the brain center? Well, now that we've looked at many faces of reality, heart level, brainwave frequency density, parallel worlds, bloodlines, lineage, time, and physical space, I'd like to take a minute to take a breath and bring your attention back to center and bring it back into your physical body, into your brain, your heart, and your belly. Because when we integrate the Hall of Mirrors, we can embrace all these higher levels of awareness in the body. I'd like to do a brain balancing to integrate the sweet spot at the center of the brain. It's a 2-minute technique to synchronize your left brain hemispheres and integrate with your right, and to integrate the pineal gland into your body chi. As you know, the two hemispheres of the brain have very different abilities. The right hemisphere looks at the whole picture, the similarities and what we share. The left hemisphere has the awareness of separation of the ego, of me as separate. It can handle details, numbers, words, and measure time. It's mind-boggling that we can begin to integrate and embody these diverse gifts. But some people think there is one best brain hemisphere, and I don't agree. I think we need both of them in perfect harmony, and we find that perfect harmony in the center, we'll be so much more conscious and so much more capable. This exercise that we're going to do helps to improve memory, calm emotions, sharpen senses, heighten awareness, and balance body meridians and organs. It is a really, really good thing to do every night before bed. And so about the pineal gland, find your pineal gland right now. Your pineal gland is straight in from here, between your eyebrows, and straight down from the very top point, the sahasrara, the top of the crown of the head. The pineal gland contains tiny crystals that respond to piezoelectric frequencies. As Tom just said, the pineal gland secretes hormones such as melatonin to control biorhythms, and dimethyltryptamine as we sleep, which is said to be a psychedelic substance for dreaming and a key to accessing divine realms. This is the chemical used in ayahuasca ceremonial healings. So maybe those ayahuasca shamanic healers are onto something important. Pineal gland calcification is a problem in our society, and it can really damage your chi, your meridians, and your body energy connections. Primary causes of pineal damage are Wi-Fi, EMF smog, cell phones, glyphosate herbicide, fluoride, aluminum, chlorine, mercury, and pesticides. So every polarity in nature represents a basic dualistic energy, such as yin-yang, service to self, or service to all, male versus female, electrical, positive or negative. When these dual energies are in balance, my feeling is there's maximum intelligence, freedom, and flow. And when we balance the brain hemispheres, the left and right meridians, the chakras, or in Taoist microcosmic orbit theory, you would say we were causing these different centers to orbit in a healthy way. It looks something like this Buddhist drawing, which shows the two extremes of consciousness in the belly and in the pineal gland. So with your, I would just say one more thing before we do this. Brain balancing may be our final battlefield to conquer transhumanist AI false matrix, because it helps us to balance into the sweet spot and become a whole multidimensional being rather than being on one side versus the other. And me having been educated even partially in the West, I have this problem. Although my mother, bless her heart, never let us watch TV, so I missed some of the programming. I still got programmed pretty good. So I'd like to do the brain balancing, and let's stop the screen share and let's just do it. So we're going to do the brain balancing. To do that, put your, okay. Do you see me? Can you see me? How are we doing on the screen? Okay, put your hand, your palm on the back of your head at the occipital region. Doesn't matter which hand. And take your other hand and spread your fingers and tap on the head, heart, and belly. So 3 to 6 times on each one. You're aware of your breathing, and you are aware of your pineal gland, which is right here in the center of your brain, and you're aware of your belly. Take your stationary hand and move it up, one hand width, up the back of your head. Tap. Head, heart, and belly. Good. Now move your stationary hand up and tap again, head, heart, and belly. This is, if you do this every night before bed, it will really help your pineal gland. Move your hand forward around your head. So we're creating a wave. You can tap on your hand and back of your hand and top of it, doesn't matter. Head, heart, and belly. This is just recalibrating the pineal gland and to the whole body. Tap head, heart, and belly. And one more over your eyes. Head, heart, and belly. Good. Now we've created a wave from back to front. Now take your hands and put them on the sides of your head. This should feel very comforting, like it's kind of on your ears. It should be on your, touching your cranium. Leave one hand metaphorically there and either hand and tap head, heart, and belly. When you're tapping, make sure you tap both sides, both sides, head, heart, and belly. I'm already feeling so much more relaxed. And then take the other hand metaphorically, leave it there, but tap head, heart, and belly. So you could do this on another person and it would balance them. Good to do before a meeting or an athletic event or anything like that, or before bed. Thank you. We just did the brain balancing. Thank you for your patience, my friends. And it's the end of my words. I'm going to retire now, and I don't have to speak anymore, which will be a great relief for me. And thank you for your patience. Okay, then, thank you all for coming. It is a joy to see these faces in front of me. And thank you for being willing to at least try to do the impossible, meaning to discover what all the dimensions are of this world and how to get out. I hope we have touched on something that is useful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melody, Srijana.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.